Yes, thank you, Jill. Thank you, Amanda. And I want to really say a heartfelt thank you to the Database Society. I think it's very meaningful that they bring us together. It's amazing what this organization can do with like semi-volunteers like this across the whole year, organizing events like this. I am truly impressed and grateful. Thank you so much. So, let's talk about moving the lines. One of our projects that are shortlisted. So I'll introduce myself. I've asked my team to help me prepare this presentation, and so I said, let's have a slide about who I am, and it was very humbling. My colleague, Julian, reminded me that I'm still nobody in this field today, AI, so I had to do it myself. I am, first and foremost, an information designer myself. I am the founder of Voila, which exists since 2013. I have a background in international development and political science. I worked 8 years at the World Bank, so close to Baltimore and Washington, and I'm a father of 2 children. Sorry, I forgot to mention that. Let's talk about Voila, then, the information design studio. We are based in Montreal. And we work exclusively in the field of sustainable development, so environmental, social, and governance projects. There's a team of 9 people, plus me, which you see here, and we have celebrated our 10-year anniversary a couple of weeks ago at a nice little party at our new office. So, oh yes, time to brag. Amanda told me I could brag about that. So last year we won the gold medal in the business analytics section. So it was also a very meaningful moment for us. It was very validating for the whole team to really feel that we are on the scene, that we are one of the actors of the data viz community. So thank you very much. This year we have 2 projects that are shortlisted, one in the humanitarian category that we work for the University of Chicago Law School, and another one that we work for a client here in Washington called the Economic Innovation Group. This is the one I'm going to be presenting today. So why not? Let's go. Actually, if you want to go on your phone or on your computer live with me, and I'm going to click, but it's live, it's there, you can see it. So I'm going to give you 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, -1, -2, and we're going to click now. There we go, because some of you probably haven't seen it. So it's the index of state dynamism, meaning are the economies of the 50 states dynamic or not? And if they are not, well, it can hamper growth, it can hamper poverty alleviation, and all other social goods. So this is, first and foremost, a scrollytelling project where we follow the evolution of the index of economic dynamism that was developed by this economic innovation group. But what's interesting is that it is composed actually of 8, and this is where the 8, and you go from the average to the 8 indicators, and you have a definition of each of them, plus those spark lines that inform you of their trend, but also there's a layer of analysis on top of it to attract the attention to which of the indicators have a downward trajectory, which of the indicators are following the business cycle, and the one indicator that is actually going up now. So back to this average here. And now we're starting with the explanation of what happened there. So there was the Great Recession during this time. And magic, 3, 2, 1, the line is transforming into stripes like this. That may remind some of you of the warming stripes. And magic again, those stripes are turning into hexagons, which are going now on a map. And so you can see the evolution of all 50 states over 28 years. And let's go. So a bit like for the indicators, we have a regional analysis here because some of the states are doing better than others and they're concentrated geographically. And then some of them are not doing so good. They're mostly in the middle of the country. And that's it for the overall analysis. And at the end, on top of the storytelling, you do have a dashboard. So sometimes you need to choose between are you going to choose the insight, are you going to tell the story, or are you going to let the client, are you going to let the user discover the story by themselves? So this is combining the two. So we are right now in the state, where is my mouse there, of Maryland. Well, I'm going to type it. There we go. It's a very average state, apparently, so 26th place. Well, it's bad, but it's good too. It could be worse. So if not, you have, for those who are close. So interestingly, Columbia is in the District of Columbia, DC, Washington is in 10th place, so not so bad. And so you can, for each of those indicators, compare the performance of your state with that of the national average. So you see that Washington did quite well during the Great Recession, but this is a ranking, so it means mostly that their performance stayed stable, and then other states had a harder time. So now that you know what we're talking about, let's go back to this. Full screen, yes. I'm going to tell you the making of this project now. So what's interesting is that this project has sort of a prequel here with the report. As you can see, there's reports and charts that go back to October 2021 before we went into the actual project. And so we had this phase 0 where we work with the client on the concept of dynamism and of economic dynamism, and created this PDF and HTML report. So we did the graphic design for this, typography and these kind of things, and the data visualization. This is where we develop also this visual concept for dynamism, which is that disruption brings growth as well. So this is what's happening. You see there's a stable period, then there's this disruption in the graphic design, and then there is growth after it. So to get a bit more comfortable with this disruption, also this was the idea there. And so this comes back across all the products. So we also flex our data viz muscles in this and show the client what we could do. So this whole report, it's a mix of graphic design and data visualization. This is very much bread and butter for Voila. This is very typical. This is how we started doing work, and a lot of our clients come to us to present their findings in a report in this way. And there was like a moment in there where we suggested a chart to the client because we were looking at those 8 indicators, and it was hard to compare them because they were all in different scales. And while preparing, we said, well, maybe we could create this index chart. And so an index chart compares the evolution against the beginning, against the starting point. And so it's all as a percentage of the initial value. So suddenly all of their indicators were comparable in this. And they really clicked with this, and so this was the final version, very similar. And on their website, it is the first chart that they use now to explain what has happened with dynamism as well. And I think this is the point where they said, well, it's interesting what Voila is doing. You know, they're really looking into the stories, they're looking into the data, they're making good suggestions. So this is my theory. This is why they came back to us a bit later to work again in a different context. So 6 months later, they came back and they said, well, we have done like the federal level report. Now we would like to put forward the state level. So break it down by the 50 states. So we have data on the 50 states. We have 8 measures of dynamism with each 50 states. And for them, we have 28 years of data. So that's 11,000 data points. And of course, it looked like this when they came to us. At first, it also looked like this. And I like to show this because sometimes you look at the final product and, you know, good design is invisible. And it looks so obvious that it should have been this. But it really started with those big spreadsheets and a client who came to us not exactly knowing what they wanted to say about what was going on in the 50 states. So we had to work a bit more than usual. Oh, it also looked like this. They had made an attempt by themselves to visualize the data, but Well, they knew it wasn't good. They told me, so I'm authorized to tell you that. It was not very engaging. Of course, it had to be on a regular map there. You couldn't see much. They had a table telling you the result for each of the indicator for each of the states, but only for 1 year. And a lot of the trends were hard to find in this. So what we did with them is we didn't go straight into design. We created this discovery report, which is something that we don't do very often at Voila, but I would say, I don't know, maybe a quarter of our projects still. So where we really take the time, the client doesn't know what they want to say, or they don't know what data visualization can do for them. So we cannot really budget it and create a schedule for it. So we have to take the time with them to develop the terms of reference, if you will. And this is what we did here. So the discovery report is truly a report. This is the cover page of a discovery report at Voila. And what we did in this, and it was like a several-step process, because we had a meeting with them. We asked them a lot of questions, what they saw in the data, what they wanted to communicate, etc. And then we went back with our feedback and with more questions. And so this is, the orientation meeting is what we have at Voila for every project. We take 2 hours with a client and we ask, like, what are objectives, who is your audience, what do you see in the data, etc. So we need to cover this information. And in this case, there was also an element of co-creation where we were filling this table with them to try to figure out it. It was very challenging in the beginning because they didn't know even them what they saw in the data and what they wanted to say. So we had to do some data analysis as well. This is even more rare that we do this because at Voila, we usually work with people who have written their report. They know what they have to say. They just don't know how to convey it visually, and that's what we do with them usually. But in this case, they were more like, what do we do with all this data? So we did a lot of attempts. Most of them didn't end up in the report, but it allowed us to talk with the client to slowly get to what would be the message there. This is Gorman here, and this is me in the background because she came to Montreal. So Gorman is based in India, but she came to Montreal, and you may know her. She was in Reuters before, and now she has started a studio called revisual.co, and she wrote this blog post about narrative structures for data storytelling that we used in our own report, and we used it for our inspiration. And so it was a very good framework to discuss with the client, like what is the story that you want to tell? How do you want to structure that story as well? Oops. And so we made 3 proposals in the end, and I'm going to make you vote on them to decide, to guess which one they have chosen. So did they want to like pick 2 or 3 stories that they saw in the data and go through them? Did they want to have a pick your adventure narrative, meaning that you choose a state and then through dynamic text and charts, you just have the story of this state? Or do you want to have more like little dashboards to explore by yourself? So raise your hand. Well, I'll give you 30 seconds to explore them. Do you think that they wanted the narrative piece, the exploration piece, or the exploratory charts? Raise your hand if you think it was option A. No one thought it was option yes. 3, 4, 5. Who thought it was option B? More option B, huh? The exploratory. And who thought it was the last one? Good news, you were all right, because they said, we want a bit of everything. And so if you work with clients, usually you know that happens all the time. So what they kept was really the strong narrative of the first option, but focus it only on one story and then add a dashboard at the end. The maps, of course, I am known to be a foe of maps, an enemy of the maps when they're not good. I love a good map, of course, but a lot of people want to put things in map that have nothing to do with the territory, with the geography, etc. And I have this theory that if there is a geographical dimension in the data set, the client wants it on a map, for sure. So we discussed this, and we discussed like what kind of map should we do with this, because their maps are very important and they're known for this. So should it be a tile map, a hex map? We also explored with them maps that allow you to show trends over time, like this one from NPR, this one from Policyviz with John Schwabish. But then we really clicked when we went back to the hex map, and we added those stripes in it, actually, like the warming stripes again, that allow you to see the trend in the data. And when we just presented those, the one on the right-hand side, to the client to show like how it would work, and the client were like, yes, I think you can work with this. So we started polishing this model. The other thing that we did in this discovery report was to work on the initial structure of the project. So we had a couple of ideas. So it's kind of a storyboard, if you will, and indeed, you're going to see that the storyboard comes back, but this is the very early version of this. Like, where's the dashboard? Are you going to start with the dashboard and then go into the story, or is it going to be at the end? So this was to show the client that we had to think about the structure. So this was the discovery report. We went into a few concepts, as you saw, but they were not final. So the client bought into it, and we had an idea of how much time we needed to build this kind of structure, and we went into the interactive. One thing interesting is that we asked the client, based on our suggestions, to write the story by themselves. Like, we're not the specialists there, they have to write it. And so, but when they came to us, we reorganized a bit their story also to have like a better flow, in our opinion. And so we did this big storyboarding exercise with them. This is done in Figma, but we would send it to them. We would like have a discussion, change a bit the text, or change the order in which it was. And you see, it's a bit like a wireframe if you're doing web development. It's in black and white. It's just the concepts at this stage. For the dashboard at the end, we had a few ideas. I'm showing you two of which were discarded. They didn't want to compare two states necessarily. They prefer to compare each of the states against a national average. And also we had thought, and it turns out we never showed that to the client, because I went to see them yesterday and they confirmed that we never showed them that. But could we add more encoding, more layers of information when you're above average, below average, etc.? But it turned out that we kept it simple. This is not the final one. This is a design that was done in, what software do you think we used to do the design? I asked this question last year, and the surprise was PowerPoint. It's not PowerPoint this year. It's Figma. So we did, all of this is just graphic design in Figma. And so this is something that we struggle with. I don't know about you guys, but where do you draw the line where you stop polishing something before you encode it, before you code it, I should say. So, because it gets to be wasted time also, because anyway you're going to figure it out during the coding, or quite the opposite. Sometimes you need to have a very clear idea of what it looks like. It's very difficult for graphic designers to intervene at the coding stage too. So this is the kind of thing that at Voila we're still refining. When is this happening? The color palette, we explored linear color palettes as well, but it's quite obvious that it's much harder to see what has happened on the left-hand side. And so the three on the right-hand side look very similar, but actually they picked this one that is a bit warmer, but not as warm as the one at the bottom right. But I like it because it goes to show like how in the details in which you get into the discussions. The mobile version is very, very similar. The only place where it's quite different is this one, because we really wanted to fit all 8 of them with their sparkline as well in one screen. So this is where it looks a bit different. But we also lost the definition of the indicators in the mobile version. So the code, I'm going to pass it over to Patricia, because as you saw in my background, I do not code at all. Patricia is our developer, and she's saying this, but believe it or not, I'm going to read a slide. We were fortunate to come at a time when people have already built the building blocks. So we use tilegrams from Pitch Interactive, shout out to Pitch. We use the D3 color interpolator for the colors on the hex map, and we use the scroller component for Svelte 2. So this is as deep as I can go in the coding, but you can take a picture of the slide and contact Patricia if you have more questions. Oh, something exciting is that there is a static version. Right now, you don't see it if you are on your computer. It's going to be updated in a couple of weeks. But we have this version that, if I click here, you can turn off the animations. And now there are no more animations. So for accessibility, this is more like a proof of concept at this stage. We're adding alt text to it, but it's the same story, but static indeed. So we redo all the animations. So one of the, you know, when they say that accessibility is good for everyone, it makes the page printable now. When it's animated, you cannot print it, but this way you can print and share it. And this is the core team that did it. So Julian was our information designer, Patricia, developer information designer. Celia is the same person who worked on the first and the second project as a graphic designer. And this project made the Wall of Fame at Voila. We just created this permanent exhibition at Voila, and one of the things that we printed to put on the wall is this map, this hex map that we're very proud of. And this is Celia's chair, in fact, and you see Mathieu, our project and client manager in the background. Shout out to Mathieu, shout out to the whole team, by the way. Oh, and I forgot to say bonjour papa, bonjour maman. I know that they're online today. And just to close there, because this looks like a very successful project, but I like this little postscript here, which when the project was finished, we had talked about making a poster with the client, and they said, oh, no, after all, we're not going to need it. But at the end, I felt like I really wanted them to have this map that they could share, like a static image of it. And so they agreed to this. We came back with this like double page format for social media, and they said, no, it needs to be only on one page. So we came back with this all on one page, and they said, no. The title needs to be bigger, and we said, like, here it is, and they said, thank you very much, we're going to do it ourselves. So, so they ended up doing their own version of it, and anyway, it's just funny because it was a very good collaboration. Of course, the client is super happy and all, but I thought it would be nice to show also that there are other sides to this. So this was Moving the Lines. Thank you so much for your time.